I said, how are you going to get people to spend their whole Saturday to do this? There was a slide that I wanted to touch on. It was this. It says, when we look through the lens of each other's weaknesses, we make others' strengths irrelevant and their weaknesses more evident. That's the discussion that we were having. It's through which lens do you see people? Because the lens that you look through then goes to see what they are. Okay. I want to touch on this because people had already asked this question. It's what I called building and maintaining intergenerational networks and relationships. One of the groups that I find that do this extremely well are the Jews. As people, some of the people that came in. In fact, many years ago, I read a Wall Street article, and it showed this. I think it started with 4 or 5 families. But over their generation, they built those relationships among themselves that after a long time, they would take cruises and all that, almost to the 3rd generation. But in that group were accountants. In that group were lawyers. In that group were doctors. In that group were business people. And essentially, by developing that, they had an instant referral system. And because they had that instant referral system, the money that any of them makes gets to circulate among their community before that money escapes. So when they need a lawyer, someone there will recommend one. And it could be among them or a friend of that. They needed a construction engineer, they do that. So that, if it's $100, by the time the $100 have circulated through their community, it has multiplied to $1,000. The questions that we've been talking about today reveals part of the reason why we are so poor. Is that the $100 that comes to a single one of us, in most cases, never circulates among us. Because we are distrustful. Because if he's my lawyer, if he's my doctor, and finds out that I'm not doing well health-wise, he might call a prayer meeting. You see, sometimes in a prayer meeting, we report ourselves and we gossip. Yeah. I just want to break it down. That's the questions you've been asking in different ways. We're not smart about it. So I want to talk about how do we get it. Indians do that flawlessly. Chinese are doing that. Koreans are doing that. But I submit to you that there is nothing that stops us from beginning to build such systems. And I want to encourage you for us to find ways to do that. That would be what we would have our workshop on. How do we build not just the relationship across, but intergenerational relationship? So what is intergenerational relationships? See, we have built our generational relationship. We know ourselves, whether it's in the fellowship or whether it's... But how do we lend that relationship to the next coming generation? How do we now begin to step out of the relationships that we have now to create new relationships that can further that economic development? Because if we just maintain our relationship with our generation, the time is that when we exit this scene, all the things that we've done will be for naught. The new generation would have to do. So it's that ability to lend, that ability to grant entrance, that ability to bring in a newer group and give them a platform that allows them to even be more successful than we are. And it takes What? You know what? I tested this idea with our younger generation, and they love to have it. And they pray. Many of them told me they're praying for me. They call me cool uncle. That's a good name. They say many of the uncles are not cool uncles. That means you are not approachable. Did I break it down right? Yeah, you see? They say, yeah. It's not this one, so don't talk to them. But but they love for us to pass on what we have learned and the advantage. And I ask them questions, and your small groups can learn that. But what intergeneration does is that it provides platforms for effective community wealth building and sharing. Money, we can create more money just by circulating what we have. But it goes to understand that we have to understand the rules of the game. It passes down lessons learned. It's a way to pass down the lessons learned, allowing people to get into faster economic thing, reach stronghold and effective, efficient, problem. It shouldn't be problem solving, it's problem solving platforms. There's a slide I wanted to show. Yeah, this is a slide. So I put it there so that I don't forget to give you example of what I mean by intergenerational networking. So my cousin did a specialist program in Detroit, in cardiology. So when he graduated, there were 4 of them in that program, and they had a reception. During the reception, they talked about this person got this and this and this. This is what they are going to do, and this person. There was one person there. He was the one out of the 4 going to be retained in the department. I'm always a curious guy, so I whispered to my cousin. I said, "Who is that?" He said, "I have a story to tell you when we leave." So when we left, this is of Indian origin. He told me, he said, the current, do you call them chairman or dean? The current chairman, the guy that makes the decision, the chairman. He said, this man that is being retained, his father was the chairman when this man now is a resident. And now this man has become the chairman. His son is now the one being retained of the 4. Do you get that? That's intergenerational passing. Because he mentored the current chairman is now coming to mentor his son. His son has an embedded advantage over anybody else because there have been social capital put in place. But if you listen to all of our stories, the kids are, if I'm a man, I don't want another Nigerian to come. How can you pass and build the wealth? That's the example. Let me give you another example. That's a very positive one with us. Let's say a family. I've been in SCF for a long time. Her father served with me on the board once. And I knew them when they were 5, 10, and time went. And she's in the maybe early 30s, late 20s. One day her dad called me and she says, one of your daughters want to talk to you. They asked for your phone number. Is it okay to give your phone number? I said, yes. So the young lady calls me, and what had happened, hey uncle, we haven't seen for a while. She's grown, she's married, and all that. She said, but I was talking to my professor, who is my mentor. And my professor asked me, I noticed you have a unique name. Which nationality is that? He said, I told my professor it's Nigerian. My professor said, oh, I know a Nigerian that works, and so I worked with him. So if you are graduating, and if you knew him, so he still said, that's my uncle. If he's your uncle, when last did you talk to him? So anyway, I talked to her. And it happened that she was looking for a job. Unfortunately, she was in the place that she is. I knew who was, the office manager. So I said, go and look if you find something. But anyway, she looked, And there was a job. She applied. She gave it to me. I put in some words. 2 days to the interview, she calls. Very nervous. She said, Uncle, I'm really concerned about this job, and I just don't want, I think I'm qualified, but I don't want them to lose this job. And I listened. I said, so what is the problem? She said, Uncle, I am more than 30 weeks pregnant. And I'm concerned that they will use that against me. And I said, technically they cannot, but it doesn't mean that they will not. But they can't say the reason why they denied the job is because you're pregnant. I said, however, what you need to do, I gave her some counsel. The issue that they have is if you are this pregnant and you are looking for this job, if they give it to you, what would happen in terms of business disruption? I said, address it. Address what you will do with daycare. Address when you will come back. Your mother-in-law, your father, your mother-in-law, your mother, and all of them live around. Tell them your daycare plan. And tell them how proactive. So she did all that. After she went to the interview, I got a call. The lady who is a close friend said, your girl nailed it. She had a good plan. She laid out what she wanted to do. She talked about when she will come back, how she will come back and all that. And the young lady still works for the company and left and doing great. But you know what she does now? So one day she called. She said, Uncle, there is this conference coming up. I want to speak on it, but, I need help. So she put together a forum. She said, can you be in this forum? It's millennial workplace. And I said, yes, I will. So she sent in her proposal, and the proposal reached Washington. I got a call. The call was, do you know that somebody had you on an abstract to come and participate? Are you aware of that? I said, yes. And they said, well, if it's selected, would you be there? I said, yes. So they selected her. I knew that they would selected her before she knew she was selected. So when we go to conference now, she calls, she texts me. They don't call, they text. That's the other thing you should know. Stop waiting for them to call. They are not calling you. They text you and respond to the text. So she texts. So she would text me. She would say, so we'll stand, and she would see me with Brother Godwin. She would say, that Brother Godwin, that is the president of Atlanta. But we do professional. I'm just giving an example. I'll say, she said, Uncle, I'd like you to introduce me to Brother Godwin. So I would take her and find opportunity for her to meet Brother Godwin. And I said, please, and they know, help her. So it is that intergenerational thing. Some of the things we're talking about is what we are not doing. That's what I mean by lending our, if you call it weight, our influence to the next generation and building it and seeing it through. To me, really, that's part of what passing the legacy means. The side that ACF has done well and hasn't at the same time done well is that we are here, and thank God for that. When you go to African gatherings, they will spend 2 hours introducing people, talking a lot about all the things they have, to the point that is very annoying. On the opposite, you come to SCF, which is great. You really don't know who is in a position to help you professionally. Because we just say, oh, this is Brother Mike, this is Brother Jide, and this is Sister this. If we can keep that good side, but allow ourselves opportunity for not only the young generation, for the better ones to do that. That's the area that is very compelling to me. So I will start by then talking about mentoring. Part of it is mentoring. And let's start by what is not. Mentoring is not latching on someone so that they can promote you and give you an unfair advantage. That's not what mentoring is. That's abuse of mentoring. It doesn't mean that you would have a free ride. Actually, my mentees go more rigorous expectations, not less. And that's where we miss it in the African context. That's your godfather. You know someone, and you have not prepared yourself. And when you get there, you mess it up. It's not a replacement for your manager. Do you understand that? There is still a relationship with your manager. In fact, I'll give you an example. When the first time I got an executive position in the company, I went to a guy who I love, and I like his ability to take risk, think differently, innovative. I asked him, I said, Mike, can you be a mentor and a coach to me? He said, sure. I think you have prospects. But then he told me, he said, but I don't get along with your boss, who is the president of our company. Now I'm in the middle. I didn't know they don't get along, but I like him. I still have to maintain my relationship with my boss, who gave me the first entrance, who's also a coach. And we eventually, because it's a fairly high position, we made a deal. And the deal was, what I do with my coach, Mike, is between me and Mike. What I do with my boss is between me and my boss. And I was loyal and respectful of that relationship, that I don't pass information, especially hurtful ones. But if they one said nice thing about the other, I pass it on. So it's not, I'm going to get this coach or mentor so that I can kick my boss. No, it will come back to backfire you. But to backfire on you. So what is the mission? It's really actions that offer knowledge, insight, perspective, and wisdom to another person. Provide opportunity for guidance, foster learning and communication, create a platform for ongoing career development. That other one you can see, I picked it from my company's work, and that's why some of the slide I'm not giving you. So how do you ask, would you be my mentor? Before approaching someone. Actually, it's very hard to go and ask for me and for many people. And for some of them, they don't normally come to say, would you be my mentee? Because it can be insulting. Who told you that I need someone? That's the first thing a Nigerian would ask you. So because you're there now, you now know I need someone. Did I ask you? So that approach usually comes from the mentee. And when I have done it, and when people have done it with me, is to create the platform or the forum where you people get engaged and you make contacts. Some of the ones that started with me, a younger one, they will come when I'm getting coffee. They might say, there are ways to make easy communication. Oh, with this curry cup now, oh, you like roasting instead of this. Oh, you are drinking chocolate. But it's creating that avenue where you can break down some of the holes. But if you're waiting for someone to come and ask you, usually they may not do that. I can do that when I see a younger African. I wouldn't even ask them, I want to be a mentor. I just create an opportunity for them to ask. Do you get that? So you have to think about it. So if it's another African or another person, when you are going to do is to even frame that. When I have asked people, by God's grace, everyone I've asked to be my mentor, no one has turned me down. But I think about it, and I don't come in to impose on them. I would start with, do you have enough time to be able to? Because some may have several mentees they are working on and will not have the time to work with you. So there are some advantages of mentoring relationship, both to the mentor and the mentee or protege. It's knowledge gain through sharing, it's lasting relationship. They are the silent advocate. Remember when I said when the door closes, who is advocating for you? Who is saying, remember this? Or when they come in and they talk about all the weaknesses of mine, who raises quietly? but do you know he's a strategic thinker? Do you know that he is XYZ? Those are some of the things that they do. Mentee, they gain knowledge. Like I told you in that example, my mentee was really the advocate that came to me and said, do you know the reputation is that you are not a morning person? What was she doing? Helping me to see what others will not tell me. So it's not just the mentor that gains the insight, the mentee also helps. That's the honest feedback. Because now you have that trusted relationship. You believe that they want you to do well. And now you can listen to them. So many times people say, well, I don't have anything to offer mentor. No, you do. My assistant ended up being my mentee. In fact, I have a slide on reverse mentoring. She teaches me technology. She will wonder if I'm running with she said, give me that. And I said, no, teach me. No, it's too, she essentially said, you're too dumb to catch it. I'll just do it for you. But she didn't use that. You get enriched by that. So it's not just that you are giving, you are receiving. I want to go through this because I've had a lot of Africans get frustrated. I was doing this presentation in New York. After that, a young lady came to me. There are 3 key things that people look at when they are promoting you and when they are building. It's called PI, performance, image, and exposure. It's performance, image, and exposure. What is performance? Getting done what you are supposed to do. Being counted upon every day to deliver. That is performance. And that's where many of us get hooked up on. I produce. What is image? How you are seen. How you are carrying yourself. The reputation that goes on. What people see. Even, honestly, how you appear. Are you well groomed? All of those make your image. People don't tell you that. But when it comes down to offer who goes up and who goes down, all of those things happen. It's all that image. The other one is exposure. See, when I teach this and we have enough time, and I would ask you, even, I don't think anyone, maybe Joseph has, if I ask you to score those 3 things, performance, image, and exposure, and equal them to 100, how would you score it? Just think about it. What? Equally. 33.5, 33.3, 33.3. How would you score? Another person? Yeah.
From experience, I'll say exposure is 50%. Performance is about 25 and it's 25.
Okay. So let me give you survey scientifically how those things work. I think I have it here. She's very close. This is how you're scored. So when you are going in and you're talking about, well, I produced this job and I did it, that's what you're paid to do. That's why you went to Georgia Tech or Georgia State. If you couldn't produce the job, I would not have hired you. That is the platform. And that's where many of us get so frustrated. And I see it every time. But the lady that met me in New York, she's a Nigerian from the West. She said, you don't know, all my managers, she's an architect, I have trained them. And I've waited here, they will go over me for me to lead them. Mm-hmm. The exposure, and that's where you need coaches and sponsors. There are difficult jobs, and I've done it to some of my men. I say, hang in on that job. Don't back away from it. They put you in the condition that will call out the best in you. Your frustration is that you don't understand this. You don't understand how people perceive you. You don't understand how you do all that great work, and one day, just small temper, you destroy all the things you have built for the last 1 year. But you go back and say, but I've been doing this job, and I'm here at 6, and I don't leave till midnight. This is how the real life is played. And I bring this, like I said, look at she's an industrial engineer. She nailed it right on the point. Exposure is 50% of what you're dealing with. And if you're going there, so many times I counsel people, I say, it's not about working for the next position. It's what are you exposed to that can hone in on certain skills that can take you to where you want to get to. It's work hard, but work smart. This is how the real life get pushed. I talked a little bit about this reverse mentoring, technology, professional disciplines, the nuances of the American culture. The truth is that many of us still haven't picked it, and many of us despise it. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to restaurants with successful Africans, and they can't pick the menu. They can't pick from that menu because they don't understand it. And yet, you took a professional group, and sometimes when they take you out, it's part of the interview. They're doing this. Is this salmon? Yes. And then you leave, you didn't get the job. Our children can teach us that. They can teach us some of the nuances. And say, Dad, when you go with them, and for example, when I coach people, when you go, that's actually, if you like Farina, not when you want it, find a salad. You don't want things to mess up your tie and your shirt and you're doing all this. It's part of that image. Pick the less harmful thing. I hope I'm breaking it down enough. Because one day we say, well, but I'm better than him. I have my PhD. Especially people that have PhD. I have one. One of them said, but that is not what gets the job. It might even give you the entrance, but that's just the beginning. So it's that, and social media. So there are many areas. The whole point is that we cannot achieve the fullness of our potential if we do not tap into each other. When we came here, there are certain things we didn't understand. Our risk equations were different. There was somebody who wanted me to talk to them. And after a while, I called her. I said, and her son is a powerful lawyer. Went to Ivy League schools. And I said, have you talked to him? I said, that's what he does with clients. Go and talk to him. Let him give you some advice. You've trained MBAs. How do you get your investment back? You've trained people at Yale and Harvard and Georgia Tech, and they are computer wizards. How are you getting your investment back? It's not they're bringing in tons of money and laying it at your feet. It's now they become opportunities for you to learn. And that's when then our community becomes stronger. Because that thing you are going to pay another lawyer. I shared it on the fellowship. I started a new business. I text one of our young people when I was in DC. That Dad is my good friend. And I said, by any chance I'm open tonight, does the schedule permit for us to meet? She texts, Uncle, I have a client meeting that will take to 7. At 7:30 I might be around. And I text, that's great. I can handle that. She texts back again and all that. But we met and we started talking. She was very proud that I started the business. Then we started legal matters. And I said, it never dawned on me that you are an attorney. I didn't remember that. I said, I could have sent my document to you. He said, Uncle, that's what you should have done. She is now a partner in her law firm. She said, by the way, Uncle, if you come, I'll take care of it for you. That is building network. She's still in our group. But what happens is that we despise those things. We don't know how to nurture them. And intergenerational network allows us to do that. In fact, that lady, I asked her, I was doing this, she said, that's wonderful. And I said, but why are you not tapping into it? She said, some uncles and aunties are very difficult to penetrate. The rules are so high, and we never attend to those rules. Therefore, you just forget it. But we need to come back. I've given you my example with my son. When she said, Dad, when you spoke, I didn't say anything. Now that I'm speaking, hear me. It was a tough lesson, but I learned it. I know there are parents that will say, well, you didn't spit on him. And after you spit on him, you expect him to have very deep relationship and respect for you. I am hurt because when you see some of our children, they are becoming superstars. Many of them are doctors, but you don't see them around. We're becoming irrelevant to them. And until we come back to build this intergenerational network and bonding, we will remain scared of resources, of opportunities. Many of them do what I do today, presenting to larger firms. And I'm saying it's time for us. So when you talk about the Indians, I've given you that example. Because what you teach with the younger people is the patience. It's the consistency, it's the patience. So those things can happen, and they can teach us. So we need, the key is for us to become what we are capable of being. It's not to be better, and that's where the challenge is. Our challenge is, I'm better than ideally. That's not your challenge. What if God wants you to go 4 or 5 times greater than me? You are now pulling yourself down. Because look at that story in the Bible of the person with 5 talents, 2 talents. What would have happened with the person with 10 talents if they just looked at the person that had 2 and doubled 4, and they had their 5 and just did 7? Do you think that God would have commended them? It's not the race between you and the next person. That's the whole stories that we were talking. I said, it's not that race. The race really is between you and what God wants you to do and what he has gifted you. That's how you will be judged ultimately. That's how I will be judged ultimately. It's not whether I'm better than Brother Joseph or whether Joseph is better than me. That's not the issue. It's whatever gift you've been given, are you maximizing it? And are you drawing the best that God expects it to be? And I'm saying to my generation, we need to build this community and begin to resource among ourselves. Our breakout session would ask how. I think I will end with this quickly. This is the other thing that many people don't understand in the marketplace. It's called the most potent currency on the planet. It's not what you think. It's not your PhD. It's this. And it's called cash, knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits. Oh, you can't read this. This is you can't read it, but it talks about what knowledge is. Did I make that copy? I didn't make this one. I'll get that for you. But the whole idea of knowledge, of acquisition of knowledge, what I find with us Africans is that we struggle and we work hard. We get PhD, we get our doctorate degree, we get our PhD in mathematics. After that, we take no more books. What you see today is God's gifting. But I gave you 4, at the end, I gave you 4 books that at least is leading to some of the things you see today. It's acquiring knowledge. What we do for us is that we acquire knowledge not as an investment, but as a means of consumption. It's so that we come into a place like this and people give you all these credentials and all. One day I talked to myself. I said, I need to come to fellowship and ask all the people with PhD and terminal degrees and get all of us in the room and said, and so what have we done with it? How has Africa benefited from it? What is the new ideas that came from all these advanced degrees? Knowledge for its sake, just by itself, doesn't help us. You need to see knowledge, and you need to see the pursuit of knowledge, as an eternal investment that yields great dividend. Attitude is the other one. That's what we spoke today. Attitude really determines your altitude. Everyone that lives in this world would have challenges. No one escapes that. Everyone in this world would have people that disappoint them. No one escapes that. Everyone in this world would have sometimes bad bosses. No one escapes that. The key is what is your attitude towards that. In many cases in our attitude, what we do is that we surrender and we allow people's weaknesses to become now the controlling influence in our lives. Not even their strength. And we tune out. We tune out on the American society. We tune out on school. We tune out on the job. We tune up, and you expect great things. Your attitude, you need to check. Even as Christians, we're supposed to have the most pleasant attitude. Have you seen us complain? How the devil is dragging us in all the places of the world. So check it and see what happens. Look at skills. And the Bible says it. He said, do you see a man skilled? What did he say would happen? He wouldn't stand before obscure people. Your skill would always make a way for you. And here is one of the things I've learned, is that talent and ability come raw. You have to develop it. Many times talent and ability, they are raw. It's like gold in the gold mine. You have to dig it out. And you have to invest that time to make your talent come up. I've told you in this particular case, I've given you the reference. There are books that I commit to in order to allow my talents and my skills to be sharpened. I wouldn't want to go to a doctor's office that the last time they read on what is happening is 40 years ago. Wow. And I wouldn't be comfortable. And if I have a choice, I will find somebody else who is improving their skills. Okay, habits. You can't read this, but this is a popular thing. You see, what happens in life, people that are successful are people that take a break and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? Many of us, when I teach this in things, I use lawnmower. You just boom. You start running. Boom, 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 boom. He hit me, I hit him. Boom, 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 boom. He cursed me, I curse him. Boom, 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 boom. There are habits that we need to sit down and say, why am I doing this? And what is it profiting me? We don't have to be bound by habit and die with it. There was one, when I was, started growing in my Christian faith, in Igbo land, they have orji, kola nuts. I went to a lady, each time I go to her house, she will give it to me, Assemblies of God woman. So, we pray. One day I went to her house, she finished, she didn't bring orji. I said, Mama, what happened to orji? She said, I'm putting discipline in myself. I don't have to eat it every time. So today, I decided I'm not having orgy. I'm breaking that. I'm thinking about habit. But for us, we are just creatures. We don't question. Okay. We don't question what we do. But those are the things that determine the workplace. It's what's going on. It's going in and asking. So the Indians, in fact, this young lady that I mentioned about her, as we were, that by God's grace I helped. When they were going young, we'll go to vacation in DC and we'll stay in their house. That time things were hard. So even when you take a vacation to go to DC, the transportation, it's a major accomplishment. So you stay with a brother or a sister, and we will run. So one day we were driving. The brother drove. He said, "Did you see that house?" I said, "Yeah." He drove. He pulled back. He went back again. He said, "Look at it." I looked at it. He said to me, "It's Koreans." He said 2-3 families live together in that house, and they stay there. They save, and then after a while they buy another one. One moves out, and I don't know whether it's contribution. They do another one, another mover. By the time you know it, the 3 now have individual houses. One is not a sufficient number. But in that community, they understood, they've come around to understand what the rules of the game is. Our fear in doing that is that when 3 of us have done it and we do Mike here, Mike goes over. The next time we come to Mike, and I'm being very honest with Christian. Mike, what happened? The Lord, as I was praying last night, the Lord pressed it on my heart that we should break this relationship. But we have nothing written down to say, it's good, Brother Mike, that the Lord said this, but look at what we wrote down. And the Holy Spirit was there as well. So when Mike says then, invokes, Mike, I'm sorry, I hope you don't give me injection that will hurt me. But when one of us does that and says, well, the Lord just said we should do something, would you question the Lord? Even though you know this is the Lord, I'm not sure of it. So you go. And next time somebody says, let's do this, he said no. Or if you don't want to say no, he said, I'll pray about it. And you are not praying. My brother, let me pray about this thing, and just make sure that that's what the Lord, instead of saying, I did this before, it didn't work out. I'm not comfortable doing it again. We don't say it like that. It's, for Elijah. And then Elijah will call again and say, I'm still praying and thinking about it. So I'm just trying to break down how we communicate. And say that is part of the problem. Or to go back to Mike honestly and say, Mike, I'm surprised that God is leading you this way now. Did it mean he didn't lead you before? Or you had, we don't know how to manage conflict resolution. So we withdraw. And I've seen few Nigerians that have gotten into business. The business went bad for whatever reason. Or one person took they made it now their personal property. There was nothing written down. There is no how business operates. And now these people are having problems. So our young people, the best thing that we can do is to begin to, so in this particular case with my friend, I can name him, I don't think he will mind, Bolu. Bolu, one day I teased him, I said, my relationship and friend network has passed you. I'm now in your children. And when they came for an event, I don't know where they came, Bulu and his wife came. Had to go back to this. They didn't even come to our house. The 5 young ladies came with their spouses to the house and stayed. And I told him, I said, Bulu, I'm done with you. I'm now building my new relationship with the lawyers and all the other people. So you can do that. And you can encourage that. And make it happen. But until we begin to get into that intergenerational network, that build it present upon present. But that means we need to have patience. That means we need to look on the positive side. Not that we overlook the negative or the weakness, but we correct it wisely. And we give people a second chance and put it in place. But this building on the several generations, that's where the other people are much better. That's why, and if you do it well, as our younger generation are being placed, they will also watch out for where we are. They would give us some of the things that we don't even know that would allow us and our society to become enriched and allow our community to be built and to be resourced correctly. And that's With that, we'll end our second phase. That intergenerational network. When we come back from lunch, you're going to have opportunities in small groups to talk about that, and there are 4 questions that will be posed to you, and you will look through it and provide answers and report back to the fellowship. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
I'm sure you can make it louder than that. Thank you, Dr. Adele, for that beautiful presentation.